Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Lens, brought to you by Jott-Nyx Paranormal. I am Jamie Widener. I'll be your host tonight. Good evening, all. And with me, of course, as always, is Chad Thomas.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
Thomas. Oh, living the dream, buddy. It's Tuesday. What could be wrong, you know?
Yeah.
We both are a little, let's say sleep deprived, I think is the right way to say it, due to a very late meeting we had, a public meeting we had attended last night that went almost to midnight. And then, of course, daily life, was work and everything today. So bear with us. We will probably chip her up as we go, right?
Or get loopy or one or the other.
Yeah, it could go anywhere at this point. I don't know. So, hey, Jed, it's been a week. What's going on with you?
Things are good. I had a birthday this week, so.
You did?
I did. So I'm like 29 again, I think.
That's all you got to be. But it doesn't matter after that.
Hey, Jim, good to see you.
Hey, Jim, Kyle, good evening, guys. Yes, and happy birthday. I knew it was your birthday. And all that. So it's not a surprise, but I actually had it planned in advance. I knew.
Mm-hmm.
The social media tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, even when you don't want it to. So
I know.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah. Well.
So anyway, how about you? How's your week, Jamie?
I did something Friday night that I've been waiting for a very, very long time. I shouldn't say it like that. I've been waiting for a while. And I went to finally see Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, very good.
I will tell you that it was the perfect blend of violence and sarcasm that I was looking for. And those who know me know that I'm fueled on sarcasm. So, but it was a lot of fun, and I left happy, so I'm good. So, and other things happened over the weekend, but I can't recall. I think we had rain, so that was part of the bummer of it all. But
yeah,
my yard looks like a jungle at this point. It'll get done eventually. More important things to do, like episodes and plans and stuff. So
for yard work, it's not that important.
Yard work, smart work.
So,
it's not a problem until the borough tells you it is, or the municipality tells you it is. So
yeah, we're glad to see Amanda and Bert here again tonight. So
hey guys, good evening, welcome, thanks for coming.
Oh yeah, the other thing I did this weekend is the whole family got together at my dad's house for a work day, and he decided we were going to have a crab feast. So he got a bushel of crabs for like 4 people because not everybody ate them. So he has plenty of leftovers. So
I was going to say somebody's going to be chewing crabs for quite a while. Although you got teenagers, so
well, they tried them and turned their nose up.
Oh, the effort, right? You got to open these, and it doesn't come in a bag.
Actually, one of them tried them, the other one didn't. I'll let you guess that.
I know which one that was. Yeah. Oh well.
Anyway,
there'll be a day.
Mm-hmm.
So. Oh well.
So anyway, we're not here to talk about my dad's yard work or anything like that.
Yeah, it's true. Although I saw the project, it looks like it's a really great job you guys did. So teamwork makes the dream work and all that good stuff. So setting up for success. So yes, we're here to talk about something totally different, right? So it's like a Monty Python thing. Now for something completely different. We are here tonight to talk about Tulpa.
Okay.
And no, it is not a city in Oklahoma. Get that out of the way first. That's Tulsa.
All right.
And it is not a flower. That's a tulip. Okay. So do you know what a tulpa is, Chad?
I have an idea. I mean, do you want me to give you what I think it is, or?
It's up to you. Do you want to be brave and go first?
My understanding is that it is some type of spiritual entity or something along those lines that is created by the energy people put into. It's created by people or a person by thinking about something in a great amount of thought, or so, I don't know, something along those lines. So
okay, you know about as much as I do at this point. Then good, perfect. At least as much as I knew when I started. This topic. Let me start with this. I guess this topic has always been one of interest to me, and I'll explain that as we go. But it was something from my early 20s that I became aware of, at least, and never had the interest enough to pursue an opportunity with it. But I could certainly see how someone would want to, and the
Mhm.
dynamic that it could create for them in their path to enlightenment. So I'll say that I'll leave that there, and then let's get into it. So first of all, we're gonna take a trip, as we always do, somewhere else in the world, out of our cozy Lancaster County area here where we're from, and we're going to go all the way around the world to Tibet. So Tibet
Okay.
is a country in Asia that is bordered by China, mostly around the top of it, and then India for the most part to its bottom, bordering directly with Nepal. Burma is in there, Bhutan, a few smaller countries along the bottom end of it. But it
Hey,
is, but
as long as we can stop for Thai food while we're there,
we
James.
sure can.
Okay.
And Tibetan food is pretty good too. So we have a Tibetan restaurant in Lancaster City, which is pretty good. So with that, it is a mountainous country for the most part. It does have some plains, it's lowlands. It is the peaks of the Himalayas are there, tallest parts of the world. So they're in Nepal as well. So yeah, a place that wasn't always easy to get to, and therefore was shrouded in mystery for a very long time, which added to some of its mystique still today, I believe. As the world is a much bigger place than it ever has been, it's still a bit of a trek to get there. So that's just to set us up where we're going. This is not a road trip, everyone. Just for the record, we have to get on a plane to get to this one. But I guess that's technically a road trip of sorts. It's a travel
Yeah.
trip. Call it
Yeah.
that. Okay. So, in contemporary paranormal discourse, let's get into the tulpa. A tulpa is a being that begins in the imagination but acquires a tangible reality and sentience. Tulpa is also described as a type of thought form regarded as capable of independent action with a persistent personality and identity, like an imaginary friend but with much more content. Okay, so you weren't far off on your description. Okay, good point.
Mm-hmm.
Tulpas are believed to be created through either a deliberate act of individual will or unintentionally from the thoughts of numerous people, or through the intentional spiritual practice and intense concentration. So let's kind of talk about the beginning.
Yeah, I
We're
feel
all,
like it was sort of blending all three of those into one one
yeah,
thing.
but yeah, and the ors are kind of like commas, right? So it's not to say it's only one thing. And that's where this, for me, this was kind of like, I'm not sure I still get it completely, because it's a practice, an active practice. So hopefully we'll be able to dig into that a little bit as we go. So let's talk about the origin, at least some of the origin, how we as Westerners became cognitively aware. So Tulpa began as a Tibetan Buddhist practice and was originally described to the Western world in print by French explorer Alexandra David Neal. And in her book Magic and Mystery in Tibet from 1929. And I have a copy of that somewhere, which I left somewhere else. So I did pick this one up. Chad, I haven't had a book in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I grabbed it, and it's on Amazon, $10 kind of thing. Really, really interesting, actually. Miss Neal lived, or Mademoiselle Neal, lived to be 101 and had a life filled with adventure. She has written many books of her experiences in Tibet and around the world. I highly recommend Googling her and checking out her bibliography and getting some of her work. Her last name is spelled David, David -Neel, but it's pronounced Neal. In this era when she was there, Tibet was still largely an unexplored area for the Westerners, especially women. Think of the movie, if you've seen it, 7 Years in Tibet, Brad Pitt film from many years ago, but about 20 years earlier than that setting. Or for people my age, the scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark where Indy fights off the Nazis in Marion's bar and to save the amulet to go back to Egypt. That's in Nepal, I know, but the era is the same. So it is kind of like that rustic appeal. Um, Not, everything's candlelit still. There's not electricity in the area.
Hmm.
Still somewhat behind the times of the modern, what we'll call the modern world. Mademoiselle David Neal describes tulpa as phantoms created by magicians and claims that she herself made one while in Tibet using prescribed concentration of thought and other rites. Now, I want to say that magicians to her is not magicians to us who pull rabbits out of hats and card tricks and such, the
Right.
parlor kind of trick stuff that we see now. It is a compliment that she says magicians because these are intentional acts that people do and not just for sights tricks.
Okay. So not entertainers.
Not entertainers by any means, correct.
Okay.
But that is her quote, so I used it.
Hmm.
So we're made aware in 1929, but the practice of Buddhism goes back centuries, right? So this is a question for me then. Okay, well, how are they doing it? So how are they created? I'll say this. Buddhists believe that advanced human minds can manipulate invisible energies into visible forms, which they call tulpas or thought projections. So, Buddhists. As a reminder, those who practice Buddhism do not acknowledge a supreme God or deity. They instead focus on achieving enlightenment or a state of inner peace and wisdom. Tulpamancers are people who conjure tulpas and experience their imaginary companions as semi-permanent, non-threatening auditory hallucinations. Tulpas can be either good or evil, depending on the intent of the creator.
Jamie, can you go back just 1 second? And what do they think of? Like, what was the description that they gave them? Temporary.
Yep. They are semi-permanent, non-threatening auditory hallucinations. So,
Okay.
that is the premise of what tulpamancers, who are those in the Buddhist sect, who
Right.
create. Not necessarily what you and I would do if we were working on this on our own.
Right.
So this led me to wonder, okay, so if they can be good or they can be evil, right? And like people, right? We have good people and
Mhm.
bad people. We have in-betweens, right? Um, can there be different kinds of tulpas? And the short answer is yes. And generally, there are three primary types. There are natural ones that are created purely through emotions, not intentional, but just so much energy. And we all have had a moment where we've been so overwhelmed by joy or grief or pain or something where our emotions may be enough to bring forward a tulpa. There are semi-natural ones. This is a headmate created by an intense attachment by a host. And in the term headmate, it means it's within ourselves.
Okay.
And lastly, is a summoned, which is an intentionally created thought form. This was the primary model that most people that in the Western world experience because we are doing it intentionally, as we are not working on enlightenment and self improvement, as it would be if you were a Buddhist.
Hmm.
Okay, so how do you create one? Well, I think it's pretty obvious to say, but you got to plan it out first, right? Intentionality. Take the time to think about what and who you want your tulpa to be. Consider why you would want a tulpa. Will it be a friend or something more serious like a life advisor or perhaps a guide? What will the tulpa look like? Will it be a human or an animal or have no form at all? I have read that tulpas prefer to have a physical form of some kind, so I would imagine that it would be most likely in our own image, so human perhaps. Think about its personality, practice talking to it, get used to keeping it in the background. So it's always with you, but not always present. And at times, check to see that it's really there. Think about its personality. Will it be funny, perhaps serious, somewhere in between? Desired personality will influence the type of entity you will create. Practice talking to it. Now, we say this all the time. We walk around in the dark and talk to ourselves, right? That's what
Yep.
paranormal investigators do. So we're used to this idea that we're talking to something that we can't see or necessarily sense, but may well be there with us.
Right.
So for us, it's not unusual, but for others, you know,
Yep.
um, give your tulpa a name. right? We give our pets names. We give all kinds of things names. We give our cars names, right?
Right.
So would not be unusual. Or open your mind and have it tell you its own name. Because if we're calling it Steve and it's Sally, it might get offended.
Right.
Right?
I just want to highlight what Amanda said here. It's like having the most real imaginary friend.
That is correct. I agree with that. And also, practice hearing it without forcing it to speak or thinking too much about what it should say. So allowing it to have its own sentence. Get used to keeping it in the background. This is where you will make it more a part of your life for the most part. It'll always be with you, but not always in the forefront. Practice keeping the thought of your tulpa in the background of your mind and thoughts. Whatever you are doing, try and keep thinking a little bit about your tulpa and imagine it is there with you at all times. So you're driving to work, it's in the passenger seat. You're taking a shower, it's washing your back. That's weird, right? Maybe. But the idea is that always around, but not always in front. Practice hearing about what you are currently doing and practice interacting with it in your mind and experience the world together as a couple. This will help strengthen the image and make it more likely that you will be able to interact with it without trying to imagine its responses. So we don't want to project, right? We want to have an actual engagement. And if you're going to believe, this is the concept of listening, right? You want to hear what the other person is saying without having something to say in response before you hear everything they have. It's the general courtesy of listening. And remember, the goal here is to create an entity with which you can interact without being aware of the fact that you're creating its answers. It should feel like, eventually, you're interacting with someone or something that you have no control over. Okay? Right. So you're creating, this is where it starts to get a little weird, right? So depending on your perspective of weird, but you're creating something that you are going to let loose, free of you, and have its own cognitive abilities or sentence awareness. So in that sense, you want to check that it's really there. When you've been practicing manifesting your tulpa for a while, you will want to perform a quick test to see if it's really there and can do things without you. An example would be to lay back, close your eyes, and let your tulpa show you something. But do not ask for it to show you anything. Just say, show me something random. So if you say, show me a thing, an object, an idea, and that's asking, that you're already supplanting that in your mind, that's what you should expect to see or feel or hear. And it wouldn't be, sorry, I just saw the Fight Club comment. Yeah, kind of. That is the idea is that when done properly, your tulpa should be able to take over and show you something strange, unique, individual, other than what you expect. So how long does it take to make a tulpa or create a tulpa? Chad, you'd be surprised, but not long at all. You could practice for about an hour a day and should be able to create your tulpa in a week or two. Less time than it takes to learn how to play an instrument or another language. Right? We were chatting earlier. I ran across you earlier today at a school event, and we both were in the band at one point. So, we had to learn how to play an instrument, and I know I didn't learn it in a week or two. I know I practiced an hour a day because I was supposed to. Yeah, most every day anyway.
Heck, I didn't even learn the marching music in a day, or in 2 weeks. It was
right. So this is interesting how quickly this can, and again, it's through enlightenment, self-inflection. It's an intentional act. So, but again, we are creating something. So that takes me in a different direction, and I guess it's a good point to ask: are tulpas dangerous? Okay. While this is a debatable topic, tulpas generally are not dangerous to other people, but to you as the person creating it, they can be. Here's why. This is why you really must decide if you really want to create one. Okay. In essence, you are talking to yourself and doing it to the point where you cannot tell the difference between talking to yourself and talking to another person. The intentionality is that direct. This can be dangerous in the sense that if you do it for long enough, the lines will become blurred and you may start well, to go insane. Remember, this is unfortunately a truth. Maybe not so much in the current era, but people who talk to themselves often get locked up in padded rooms, right?
Yep.
Or have butterfly nets, and people in white jumpsuits around them. So um, there's a line here somewhere. So can tulpas harm you? The short answer here is no, but there are reports of people becoming so enveloped in their tulpa that they may have reported their tulpa telling them to harm themselves. So, again, you're having this direct interaction, and and it's kind of like if you're treating something poorly and it has some ability to control you in some way or influence you, it may ask you to do something that is going to harm you to get you back on track.
Right.
So. This is where it gets a bit dangerous, and it's very hard or perhaps impossible to determine whether the tulpa actually is a real thing inside their heads or our heads that wanted to harm them or not. Sometimes it is us as well. One of the scariest parts of tulpa forming is that you never really know whether you're creating a tulpa or if a tulpa is a real thing that you've just invented in your head to interact with. If they are real things and you're not creating them, then the question becomes, are they dangerous and do they want to harm me? There's been speculation about whether tulpas are evil, demons, or demonic possessions as well. And obviously that's probably open for debate.
Right.
I personally don't think that's the case, but there are more documented cases of tulpas possessing. If there would be more documented cases of tulpas possessing people. I think for the most part, they're merely an experiment with the imagination and ourself. So you do create one, and maybe it's bad, right? Maybe it's trying to harm you. So how do you get rid of a tulpa? A couple things.
Okay.
Some people create a tulpa at a young age and have it for years in their life. Then at some point they decide to stop talking to it, but they find it doesn't go away. So it might be the equivalent in our households might be a rat, maybe, Chad. I'm saying, yeah.
Right.
If you've created a tulpa and you want to get rid of it or stop interacting with it, here are the things you can do. This is not a problem, and there are some easy ways to get rid of a tulpa. The main one is to meditate and think about your tulpa. Imagine it in front of you and then practice seeing it inside a white shield of light. When the shield is up, you can't hear it, and it cannot interact with you. Think about this from our investigations. This is similar to the grounding exercise we used before, right? Ball of light above us, slowly moving down through our bodies, taking away, cleansing out the things that we don't need for the day that we've had with us. Trying to free ourselves from all that burden of stuff, hustle, bustle, stress. That way we can walk into an investigation clear and clean. Prospectively, at least, and not allow that negativity to draw other things.
So let me get this right, though. The same way that you create a tulpa, is the way that what you need to do to get rid of the tulpa.
Mostly, yes.
Okay.
Interesting, huh? Right? Yeah. So practice every day, seeing it inside the shield and unable to make a sound in your mind when the shield is up. This will help to remove the bonds between it and you. It could take a while and to remove it, and it probably will take longer than it will take longer here than it took to make it. So, because it's grown and it's expanded and it has more presence now than it did when it was new. So think about an infant, right? Fairly simple things to manage. It doesn't go anywhere unless you move it. Requires you and your attention at all times. But as it becomes a toddler, the independence starts, the mobility starts. You have to be much more. There's much more to starts babbling and then talking. Then demanding to go to Starbucks every day. Whatever. Okay, sorry.
That's a teenager, Jamie.
Well, I'm getting there. Right? That's before that. So it is definitely doable to remove a tulpa. However, it is the same intentional practice as it was to create it. And it may take longer because, again, it has more sentence and self-awareness as well. So tulpas could be created, right? There's something of ourselves and our intentionality, our desire to open ourselves up and establish this being.
Hmm.
What else could it be? So there's a distinct possibility that tulpas may be miscategorized as either ghosts, aliens, or even doppelgangers, right? Because we don't really understand it at times. And if you can create one without knowing you've created one, with our own,
Right.
intentional thought. Bear with me. I'm going to slide a little on this one, but I think I have a good point. For example, the Slender Man that was created by Eric Knudsen back in 2009 could have been a tulpa, even though it is a fictional character. We all know it was made up, right?
Right.
It was part of an ad campaign that exploded. The collective desire to have this fictional character materialize could have actually brought it into a sentient being. And this could be should this be the case, this is a bit of a far departure from the Tibetan tradition of a tulpa, but it goes
Right.
back to the beginning where it can be the collective desire of many people. So that's where we have to kind of be careful. And in the era of social media and instant access to everything, there's things that don't slide by like it might have in the past. And you can see this from this era. This was 15 years ago. It was one of the very first viral phenomenons. And now it seems like every day something's viral, right?
Hmm.
So, and we were all so enthralled by it that, we wanted this to be real. And therefore, it technically could have become so in this essence. Since the 13th century, there are believed to be tulku, that's Tulku, which is an advanced Buddhist practitioner who manifests in human form to preserve and propagate certain teachings. Some believe the current Dalai Lama is a tulku, and we were on the 14th Dalai Lama, by the way. In this sense, a tulpa may be a spirit guide meant to help someone in their life journey. Kind of think about Obi-Wan Kenobi in The Empire Strikes Back. He comes back as a Force ghost to guide Luke Skywalker. In later movies and action as well.
Uh-huh.
In a medical term, this could also be dissociative identity disorder, or DID for short. This is previously known as multiple personality disorder. It's a chronic condition characterized by the presence of two or more distinct identities or alters that function independently and have distinct behaviors, memories, and characteristics. Each alter may have a unique name, personal history, and features such as differences in voice, gender, mannerisms, and physical abilities and qualities. Alters may reveal themselves and control thoughts and behavior, such as causing people to do things they wouldn't normally do, like speeding or stealing. Signs of a switch to an altered state include trance-like behavior, eye blinking, eye rolling, and changes in posture. People with DID may experience amnesia, gaps in memory about everyday events, personal information, and past traumatic events, and highly distinct memory variances. Memories between different alters may even conflict with each other. Other symptoms include feeling like you were possessed by other entities, hearing voices, including that of a spiritual power, sudden impulses or strong emotions to do things that you feel you're not in control of, feeling like your body suddenly feels different, and sudden changes in attitudes or personal preferences. DID has no known cure, but psychotherapy, cognitive behavior therapy, and hypnotherapy are a few treatments in use today. So, of all the things that kind of fall in line with a tulpa, there's some alignment here as well. So it's quite interesting how there could be more than one possibility. So, to conclude, I really don't have a conclusion. So I'm going to conclude by not concluding. But I have a few thoughts actually. The first is never underestimate the power of the mind. We don't know the bounds of what we can do, and it's interesting, and it's been something of fascination for me for a very, very long time. Knowing with time and training you can create a tulpa, but before you do, make sure you know what you're doing and creating. And it's interesting that way. Like, if you don't know, you can do it wrong. Creating a tulpa is a personal responsibility and it will require an investment of your time and attention. This is no different than getting that rat that's in our house right now, or the dog, or the cat, or the other pets of any kind. It is a thing that needs to be cultivated and attain attention to. Any form of introspection is good for you, and creating a tulpa is just one way to do so. An alternative path would be practicing meditation, and there are many other things you can do to learn more about yourself. And I will say this, I said back in the beginning about being a lot younger. My freshman year in college, I had a religion course, and it, of course, taught many things, not just Buddhism, but that was one of the things that really struck me as an interest, in the path of self-enlightenment and inner peace as a young person. And I never pursued it, but this was always kind of something I've been self-aware of. And there are many ways to, like I said before, introspection is good. There are things like yoga and meditation, stuff like that we all can do in some form or another. Those who are paranormal investigators, we kind of have that moment before we start of just calming. I mentioned this, the grounding part of the grounding and centering exercise that we do, just to clear our minds. It's the moment of silence that we have before events happen, just that self-reflective moment. I think we all can do that. Many of us do it anyway. We just don't always realize we are. So
Right.
I think it's fascinating. And I will stop there and say, Chad, what do you think?
I think the power
You're
of our
being self-reflective. I love it. You pause. That's perfect.
I think the power of our mind is way beyond anything that we can understand. We all know that the percentage of our brain we use is less than the percentage of the brain that we don't use. So I think this is very feasible, very possible, very, there's so many possibilities. I'm starting to try to explore and understand the metaphysical world, which this, as you mentioned earlier, like before we were on the air, this definitely falls into something that's more metaphysical than physical. So I'm starting to try to learn more about things like this and understand it, which of course I never will understand it because we're not meant to. But I think, yes, this is a possibility. I don't know if you saw Cindy's comment while you were talking about to check out the Philip experiment. Are you familiar with that at all?
I'm not. I did not come across it in the research for this. So I will,
Okay.
though.
So, while listening to you, I did a quick refresher on this because I have heard of this.
Okay.
It was a group, and I'm just looking at some stuff I found very quickly. It was a Canadian group, I believe, that was tasked with seeing if working with the theory that a ghost could be created from the human mind, poltergeist, things like that. So it was the Toronto Society for TSPR, Psychical Research, set out to manifest a fake apparition in 1972. In the apparition, they were given information about a guy named Philip, who I believe was from like 1640, this mid 1600s. And they were very successful with creating an apparition from their minds. Not a real person. They were just given information, and it was under anything with the paranormal. The circumstances are very hard to duplicate. It's not done in the scientific method, but they did different ways of creating or contacting. They did seances, and they were made. Things were under somewhat of a control. They weren't allowed to bring things with them. They were, but they did feel breezes. They felt touch. They heard sounds. Like it's interesting. It's definitely worth checking out and researching it. And this has been repeated by several other groups over the years.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds like a sort of like a placebo effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have medical trials, and you have the active medicine, whatever it may be, and then you have the placebo, and you do the test against both,
Right.
and you provide the basic information that you need for the person to understand what they're doing as far as what it should do, the side effects, all those things. And it's interesting because
Hmm.
the individuals under the placebo tend to display the same type of things that the person who took the actual medicine will do,
Right.
and especially if they're in an environment where they're together. So you kind of follow the path of someone else's behavior and you
Right.
modify yourself.
Right.
And that's another part of the mind, saying I should be that way too.
Hmm.
Um, it's quite something. And here's more description to that.
Yeah.
Um, wow.
Said tables tipped, knocks in response to questions, etc. Whatever the phenomenon was, interacted with the environment.
You say that one more time.
No, I can't.
Do 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 phenomenon. Do 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 do
So
phenomenon.
yeah, it's definitely worth reading about. So Cindy, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
Thank you
Um,
very very much.
so, so I'm going to throw a question back to you, Jamie.
Okay.
Would you ever consider trying to create a tulpa?
If it will do the dishes, yes. That's a great question, actually. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to be funny about it, but it's not one that to be taken lightly. And I think that's the point.
Right.
If you were going to go so far as to um, follow the path to create a tulpa, and it is a very serious endeavor. It should be one that's planned and a lot more than just a, hey, that sounds cool. Let's go do that. It's not a weekend event kind of thing.
Right.
Um, the, 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 the answer is maybe, and I kind of lean more to probably even. I would be interested to explore it, but the true real challenge is to know the difference between what you believe you're doing and the actual result. And
Right.
I think that's the whole part of this. And maybe where people do work to create a tulpa, but they don't get the desired outcome and they abandon the effort, but the tulpa's been created. And it's like abandonment at that point. Um,
Right.
I don't know that that's the right way to say it,
No, but
but
it
in
makes sense. I mean,
but in the essence of it, it is exactly
Mhm.
that. You've brought something forward, you've created something, and then you've just kind of let it go and let it adrift. And
Right.
what I guess what I don't understand, or I guess I understand what I'm saying, but what I don't know what that would mean is what would that tulpa do or be without its anchor human or person in the world, and
Right.
how many might there actually be? And is that something we're experiencing when we're out looking at investigation, an
Okay. So
investigation?
that leads me to another question I was going to ask you. Um, in your research, you find that other people can, like, if you, Jamie, created a tulpa?
Are they transferable?
Well, not, but would I
Yeah.
be able to interact with it? Would I be able to see it? Would I be able to experience it?
I didn't glean that because it's truly a self um, created um, entity or being. And that's the thing. It's not harmful to others, but it could be harmful
Hmm.
to you. So
Right.
I didn't catch that in any way, shape, or form. But it would be interesting, especially. And I think that the key to this, and it's much like investigations, right? When we do public events, a lot of times the guests are couples,
Right.
he and she, and
Hmm.
one way or the other, one of them is a believer and the other one's not. It always seems that way,
More
right?
often than not. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, more. I mean, it's just whether they're just saying that or not. I don't know, and I don't care. I guess either way, it's cool. That's their thing. I'm not judging,
Right.
and it goes to that too. Like if there was the opportunity to have the engagement with a second person, they would have to be at the same place as you are as the creator, because you've done
Right.
the effort. You've put forward your personal effort, energy, intent. You've done the work, and I don't
Hmm.
know that without that level of engagement and intent, that the other person, whoever they may be, would be
Hmm.
able to experience the same things you do. So That's a really good question, though.
Yeah.
And I kind of think I thought you were going for like, can I give it to you? You're like, here, happy birthday,
No,
Chad.
no.
It's a little late, but here you go.
Yeah.
Here's my Tulpa Steve. Um, I don't think that would work either in that same
No.
way, because it is your essence engaged, that has engaged this process,
Right.
your intentionality, and
But I'm also,
it's a reflection of you as a
right.
person.
But I'm also, I wouldn't rule out the being able to maybe not fully interact with it, but pick up on it as, and I sort of think Amanda touches on it here. I feel like many people may unintentionally create these and set them free.
Yeah,
This could get deep, but I'm like like you said, I think
not
you
wrong.
alluded,
I don't think that's wrong at all.
I think you alluded to it earlier. Is this some of what we're interacting with sometimes?
It could
So
well be. And I think Bert brings up a good point too. And let me slide over. I'm on two screens here. I'm sorry. I'm trying to swing.
yeah, I'll bring it. Oh, you got it. Okay.
Yeah. I'm with this. I don't want to do a Ouija board. I don't know what's on the other side of this. We should do an episode. We really should.
We did.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, we did. Jeez, how many weeks we done now? I do have to go back and look at the list that we've done every once in a while just to make sure we're not duping. The idea that it's a toy is always the first thing that comes to me.
Right.
But the premise that it could be something that creates a portal or an opening or an access point to something I don't see or understand is what stops me from wanting to do it.
Right.
And the same concept then applies to the tulpa for me as well. I believe I understand what I'm creating, but I don't get to know that, unfortunately.
Right.
And that's what pauses me. That's the part of me, like the 70, I want to say 70 yes, 30 no, but it's more like a 50, 50, 45, 55 no,
Right.
because I want to say yes, but I have that moment of pause because I really don't know what it's going to be.
Right.
And with all good intentions, when we're engaging in a paranormal investigation, we have to have the trust that whom we believe we're engaging with is who they really are and who they say they may be if we ask the questions, and we get that response, yes.
Right.
It's always in the mind, though, that we don't really know that for
Right.
sure. Because again, and I say this all the time, and I'm going to say, right, no one's going to walk out of the wall and introduce themselves.
Right.
So we have to work on some trust. And
right. We do, but like I've also felt, and I know Amanda at places we've been has felt that what we're communicating with is portraying something else.
Sorry, I saw this comment. Yeah.
So we do have to have that trust, but we also, like, people who are sensitive, and I'm sure Heather's experienced this too, are sometimes things will portray what they're not. Like they will
exactly my point.
So
yes.
So I want to bring up some comments that people made as you were talking, Jamie. Heather said, I can honestly say this is something I would never do. Just does not feel right to me. It is like sabotaging your sanity. Definitely not for me. And then Amanda said, I'm with Heather on this one. Personally, I have enough voices in there without adding another one or another. So,
sure.
I don't think, I think if this was something I would want to do, I would want to go towards the route of what the Tibetans do, where but that takes much more focus than I think I can ever put into it. Okay. Just something that's that semi-permanent, and it doesn't seem like it feels like something they're definitely talking to. And I don't know if people visualize these, but again, everybody experiences.
You can. And that's the point of knowing whether you want it to be human, an animal, or non-formed.
Right.
That is your visualization,
right?
What you've created, and again, and also naming, or letting it give you its name, whichever way. It also it helps for us, for the consciousness of us because that's what we do. We see people, we see things, whatever they are.
Right.
And we name them, and it allows us to have that connection, that touch point that we need when something is less than those things, less than firm. Then we start to call it other things that it may actually be. Like, this is where ghosts come in and aliens and all that stuff that it
Right.
could be, maybe. Before we start to slide. And that part's a whole nother conversation, perhaps in a psychology class somewhere, about the connection we have to material things. Once things become immaterial, or not immaterial, less than physical material, we start stumbling on it, like I just did, obviously, right? Stammering through it.
Right.
But we don't connect to it as well. And the metaphysical part of this whole thing. And that's where a lot of people, and this is where I had trouble originally wrapping my head around it as well, because I want to see it. I want to be able, when I create a Tulpa, I want it to be a person who's right there. And it's not that. It will never be that. So that's where it gets weird. And it probably strange for those who can't get to that far, that sense of enlightenment to themselves. You're right. This is not, this is part of a lifelong practice in the Buddhist religion, and not something that even all Buddhists do. So it's not for everybody.
Right.
And I'm going to steal a line from an 80s song. It ain't for everybody, only the sexy people. Yeah. More stay in the time. Yeah. Google them. They're cool. Yeah. So, in that sense, Chad, you're right. And the cool thing is, we as people have the ability to learn so many things, right? And we will, maybe some of us are learning something today we've not learned of before. I think I saw that in the comments. And we can make choices whether we want to do something or not. We have that consciousness. So if this ain't for you, don't do it, right? Kind of thing. But if it is, I would say explore it, but do your homework. Take the time. If you're in any area where there's a temple, a Buddhist temple, stop in, have a conversation. You will be welcome. And like anywhere else, and just do the work before you actually start the work.
Right.
And that way you're sure it's for you.
Something I would add to that, and I don't know, this is just my personal opinion. Something I feel like I need to relay is, if you're going to do this, make sure somebody else knows that you're doing this, you're practicing this.
Yeah.
Because if you get beyond what you understand, at least somebody else knows what's going on.
Yes. I learned something very valuable from the film 127 Hours. Always let somebody know where you're going. Okay. Yeah. You don't want to have to saw your arm off.
Right.
Or I'm going to bring up our good friend David Dermidi. Let people know where you're going to investigate. Since something happened to you when you're somewhere you're not supposed to be. Love you, Dave. But you know what I'm saying. That way someone is aware of you and you're where you're at in the world. So it's the same idea. Okay.
So, Jamie, this has actually been a really interesting topic. It actually garnered some discussion. We've had more back and forth on this one than I think we have in a long time. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's true. You're right. Because it is. Well, I think we're both of the mind that of ourselves, and I know you and you know me. I think this is something we find interesting,
right,
as well. And it's a curiosity, at least, and it's been one for me for a very long. I mean, it was a long time ago. It's a freshman in college, so sadly, but it's something I've been aware of. No, I'm not 29 like you are. I turned 30 this year. You're right.
Anyway, sorry.
But before we slide away, I do want to cite sources for this. A couple things. The University of California Press, psychologytoday.com, a very interesting website called jstore.org, which helps, it does a lot with religious text and information or articles and papers, white papers on religion. Of course, Alexandra David Neal's book, Magic and Mystery in Tibet. And howtolutid.com/tulpa-guide. And lastly, this is legitimately a thing, tulpa.info. So some cool sources out there to explore.
Yeah.
And I said this earlier, and I really mean this. If anybody's interested in learning about a really interesting person, Alexandra David Neal had a really cool life. She is from France. She has Belgian and French parents. Growing up in the late 1800s, early 1900s, she tried to run away to England at the age of 15 and made it to the Channel, but didn't have money for passage, or else she would have been gone. Came back home, wound up going to college in Paris, became a opera singer, a professional opera singer for about 10 years, and then became a composer, married. This is hence her hyphen last name. But as people in the era often did, she was married but never stayed home. She took off and wanted to see the world, and found her way to Tibet and stayed there for many, many, many years. Also India and Nepal as well. She met Dalai Lamas and Maharajas and some really cool stuff through her travels. So all of it's documented in several books. But
Yeah.
it's the side effect, or the byproduct of doing research for stuff like this, is you run across some really interesting people. And we run across interesting people out in the field all the time too, right? So
Definitely.
and you all are very interesting people too, for being with us tonight. So thank you for indulging me to babble through some of this. I do appreciate you all for it. Thank you.
Yeah. So, well, again, like I said, Jamie, thank you for bringing this subject. It's one I've heard of, but I had not something I was going to look up myself. So again, thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure. Of course.
So,
all right. Well, let's move along.
All right. Let's see. Upcoming episodes. I mean, we have one more left in August. Can you believe that, Jamie?
No.
And we're going to be talking about the folklore of Ireland, the puka. Again, that's actually a listener request. So thank you, Heather, for reaching out to us on that one.
Yep.
Then we've got Pauli's Island Ghost. Selma Mansion is scheduled for September 10th. We may move that date around a little bit, depending on, we're trying to get some people who do a lot of things at Selma to come on the show with us.
Yep.
So we'll see if I can make that work. I've got 3 or 4 people in mind, so we'll see if they have any availability. And then
we have lots of little tiny screens to put people in, so
exactly,
more the merrier.
So, and then the Dat Love Pass mystery. This one I've heard about. I know a good bit about this. Jamie and I follow 2 or 3 podcasts that we recommend back and forth to each other, and I know 2 of them have done this as an episode.
Yep. It's been done many times. This is from the 1960s, so it's been covered many times. So it may be something that you may not know the name of, but I think when we get to it, many will have heard the tale and be familiar at least with the story, maybe not the details. So,
and then we definitely have some things coming up after that. We're just, getting them hashed out and figuring out the schedule. Trying to figure out what we're going to get in here for October. Spooky season is quickly coming upon us. I mean,
it's here. It's not coming. It's here, buddy.
It's here. It is. Yeah.
You know how I know? Because Christmas stuff is in the stores already. That's how I know it's spooky season.
Well, and the little Reese's Pieces ghosts, or Reese's Peanut Butter Cup ghosts, are out already. So.
And the bats as well.
The bats, yep.
Like Ozzy, you're gonna bite the head off.
Then coming up October 19th, a spectacular event at Booby's Brewery. We're going to have Daryl Marston. We're going to have Ron Iacovetti and Lourdes Gonzalez. I remember their names this time, Jamie. Yes. It's funny. About a year ago, I had just met Ron and Lourdes in Gettysburg, and was amazed at what they were doing. We were planning on working with them in September, and we came back, and I was on this show. I think it was the West Virginia one?
Yeah, West Virginia Penitentiary episode.
And I was starting to talk about them, and I couldn't remember their names. I felt so bad, and and I thought, I was getting ready to re-release it on the podcast on Spotify and stuff.
Yep.
And I listened to that part of it, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And then Jamie was like, I just listened to West Virginia State Penitentiary, and you couldn't remember. I think part of what we discovered is we've come a long way in a year, Jamie.
Yeah, that's true. And that was what I was saying to you. Like,
Uh-huh.
I didn't know who they were either, and gosh, now I'm like, wow, how did I not know this? Um, the, when anything's new, it takes a minute to stick, right?
Hmm.
Um, there's well, I won't get it. There's a song with a great lyric that, the songs you grow to love, they never stick at first. Um, so
Hmm.
that point is, what you wind up really, really have an absolute love of sometimes doesn't appear that way when you start. And they, to us, were new, and the idea of what they're doing was unique. And now, I'm like, wow, every time I see, an episode of their podcast, and or a live field demonstration as they did at the Great Gettysburg Battlefield Bash this year, and then the secondary opportunity at I forget the name of the event this past weekend already. But coming and setting up and actually doing sessions with people in the room,
Hmm.
it's just wow every time, and the improvements they've made themselves over the last
Hmm.
year to their
Right.
system. Great stuff, and
Yep.
I'm looking forward to October 19th, perhaps more than anybody, because I haven't had a chance to work with them in person yet. I
Right.
know you have a couple times now, and I'm jealous of every time
Hmm.
you've done it, and those others who've been around with us to do it. So yeah, I'm not rushing October. It's starting to get dark earlier. It's colder, but I'm looking forward to October 19th, and this is going
Yeah.
to be a really cool event. So if you're in the area, or even if you're not, Mount Joy, Pennsylvania is not hard to get to, and there is accommodations either at the site itself or local hotels and so forth to stay at. Um, Use your points and your miles and all that cool stuff, and get here for this. It's going to be a
Yep.
great night, and
And
a lot going on.
and and Daryl's there. I mean, Daryl's always a great person to
Oh,
talk to. He's so down to earth, being having the TV personality, but he's so down to earth and easy to talk to. I believe Amanda worked with him this weekend. I think I saw a post.
okay. Oh, cool.
Um, so, but definitely, definitely, he's going to be pushing some stuff he's doing in our area. I'm sure.
Yep.
Be talking about that. So,
I think I'll
yeah.
have some copies of his book as well, which is a really great read.
Mhm.
A personal story, a personal experience story that really set him on the path to the paranormal for sure. And one of the things I think all of us have that moment at some point where we realize that we want to do this.
Mhm.
And it's not always as clearly defined, perhaps, as his experience was, which is cool. If it's not, that's okay. But something happened to all of us who are in the field to say, this is what I want to do. Whether you can do it full time, whether you do it, on the side, whether you dabble or you're deep, whatever it may be. But we've all had that moment, and that really related to me in his story.
All right. Um, Jamie, do you know what I heard? Speaking of the book that he wrote,
Ooh, okay.
the House of Wills is now open again for investigations. Or if they're
Leland, we're
not,
coming. Road
if
trip. This is
if they,
this is the road trip for this episode.
um,
Absolutely.
if
Yeah.
it's not, it's opening shortly. I'm pretty sure. I'm hoping that I'm right on that, but I'm pretty sure I saw a post somewhere that it was reopening for investigations. So
Yes.
we will definitely have to research that one.
Yeah. Let's do that.
So,
Yes. Yes. And yes.
so
I'll drive. You
all
get the
right.
snacks. I'll drive.
There may be a student going to college in
That's
Ohio,
true.
possibly.
You have a reason to go to Ohio soon. Yes. Maybe.
Maybe let's not push
But
anything
maybe.
yet. So,
Yes. All right.
anyway, as we digress, upcoming events: September 7th. These are all public events at Booby's Brewery. September 7th, September 28th, 2 in 1 month. Then we have a regular public October 12th. October 19th, we have this spectacular event that we talked about. November 16th and December 7th. All have tickets available. September 7th, that will definitely be an investigation. We have enough tickets sold for that one, so we are good to go. Um, so I'm excited because we haven't seen the team together for a while.
It's been a minute. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
So, Bert, House of Wills is a very interesting story. I got the book from Daryl. It's also available as an audiobook. I
He'll
would
have
definitely,
copies as well with him. I'm
yeah,
sure of that. And then you
definitely
get an
worth,
autograph
yeah,
or signed
definitely
copy.
worth reading his story or listening to it, or yeah,
It's a personal story too. It's his experience at this place. So and if anybody's, if you've seen him if you've seen him on TV, the realness that he has there is the realness he has in real life. So
hmm
that makes him really real, right? Right. That
really,
word,
really real.
really real. Uh, I'm so sorry. Uh,
We are,
I had so much going when I was talking all the time. Now I've lost, like I'm starting to slide.
yeah,
Tired's kicking in. So sorry, guys. But genuineness is in his writing style as well. So it's really cool. It's an easy read or easy listen, either way.
yep. So, and then I guess the only other thing we have to show tonight or talk about tonight is how you can find us. Obviously, you found us on the Jott-Nyx page for the podcast tonight. We have TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. We have an email, Paranormal Lens Podcast at gmail.com. Still waiting for our first guest
Real email? Yeah,
email.
real one. I don't count, right? Yeah.
So,
All right. But
he's going to be
somewhere
our,
there, right?
someone.
Somewhere. Yeah.
So,
But if
um,
the point of that, the sharing that is if you want us to cover a topic, if you find something's really interesting and we haven't done yet, and we have a backlog, which is available on our Facebook page here under our video tabs, but also we're slowly uploading them to the usual traditional outlets of Spotify, Apple, and Audible. They'll all get there eventually. But if you're not seeing it, we'll let you know if we've done it and share it. But if not, we're certainly willing to tackle it. We've had quite a few, I say 3 or 4, maybe 5 now, listeners submitted ideas for episodes. We're always willing to take it on, certainly. And we're flexible with our schedule. It's nothing set in stone, so we can move stuff around and get it up pretty quick. So feel free to share or let us know what we're doing. How we're doing. If you're not on Apple, Spotify, or Audible, and leave a comment or a rating for the episodes you're seeing, feel free to shoot us an email and say you guys are great, or maybe say you guys suck. I don't know. I hope you don't do that, but it's possible, I guess. I respect your opinion either way. So there.
So. And as Jamie just said earlier, we are on Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcasts. All you got to do is search for Paranormal Lens. I believe we're the only one out there on using that name for
so far so good. Yep.
Podcast. There is another Facebook group that actually is the Paranormal Lens. So we may have to claim that name on Facebook at some point, Jamie.
Okay.
So,
we'll have to have one of those moments where I'll show up in our leather jackets and snap our fingers at each other. No. So, and to the point though, and with how to find us, it's pretty easy. And if you do, please give us a listen on those alternates as well. We're always here live on a Tuesday night. And everything that's presented on the traditional podcast outlets is a recording, of course. So there is a video tab that you can see what we're showing you in our slides. But give us an idea how we're doing. Give us a rating. We'd love 5 stars, of course. And I don't think I should. I'm not ashamed to ask for 5. I think we do a good job to earn it. But if we're not, let us know. And that's we're never going to get better unless you let us know what we need to do. So. We appreciate those who are with us all the time, but those who else are out there. So give us touch base. Let us know. Appreciate that. We really look forward to your feedback.
Yep. So, all right. Well, do you have anything else tonight, Jamie?
No, my pillow is calling, sir. It's been a long week and it's only Tuesday, so I'm good.
Yeah, and it's going to be a long day at work tomorrow for me. We got another job we got yesterday, and it's got to be shipped on Saturday. So long week.
I think, and I'm not going to go too deep here, but I think some of your handiwork is visible on a network channel tonight, right?
Definitely on Thursday.
Okay.
But some of it, they're leading up to that. So yeah. So
okay. Well, we'll talk more maybe next week about that after the fact. So not to tip too much away.
So
cool. All right, y'all.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you as always. And we hope you have a great week, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Tuesday,
yep.
9 o'clock.
Again, Jamie, thanks for bringing this topic and killing it like you usually do. So,
Of course. Well, this is probably the part where I should say namaste.
all right. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.